Now we're going to move on to our second exercise in democracy this afternoon. We're going to have what many people in Britain are craving for, a second referendum. You're going to get a chance to vote on a subject that is very close to the topic of the last discussion. So if you get your phones out and you go to the WSDS 19 app, the little fat red voting button should be there for you. So if you get your fingers ready, poised over that, and in a nanosecond we're going to see the question appear on the screen before us. Excellent. So would framing national or regional policies on marine litter help with addressing the release of plastics and other litter in marine waters? In other words, is this a thing specifically and particularly for governments? So there we are. You've got 30 seconds remaining to think about it. Obviously, there are plenty of other initiatives that people might go for, but do you think that the government push is the one that's particularly needed? And we'll see the answers. Here we go. A few of the voting boxes haven't reached the polling stations yet. The algorithms aren't always as fast at counting as one would like. Ah, joy, yes. Let's give it a couple of seconds more and see if the magic of the interweb can be restored to us. How these IT guys made their billions, I've no idea, have you? It's quite extraordinary. The amount of money people have made by dissatisfying all of us. Any joy? Can anybody wave at me from the back to let me know if we're likely to get an answer? Otherwise, we can come back to it later. I think that's what we'll do. I think we're going to come back to this later on. So we will find out the result when the voting boxes have come in from those far outlying mountain constituencies. And meanwhile, we will move on with our next panel. Those of you who went to the inauguration will have heard Vice President Naidu talking particularly about the need for more sustainable agriculture and making some welcome commitments on behalf of the government of India to promote it, including, interestingly enough, I thought, organic farming. So it's appropriate our next panel is going to be discussing. The theme is Commemorating the UN Decade of Family Farming, 2019 to 2028, striving for local sustainability at the global level. The phrase commemorating might be a bit previous, as we haven't actually started it yet. Perhaps we should think of anticipating the UN Decade of Family Farming. We've got an excellent panel. If I can invite them to take their places on the dais. To let you know who we'll have Dr. Alok Adholeya, who's a senior fellow and senior director in the Sustainable Agriculture Division in TERI. We'll have Dr. Hemant Kumar Badola, who's advisor at Biodiversity, Climate Change, a GTT facilitator in the Chief Minister's Office in the government of Sikkim. We have Mr. Edward Millard from London, Director, Landscapes and Communities for the Rainforest Alliance, one of the main certifying bodies in agriculture. Mr. Ashwani Muthoo, who's Director of the Global Engagement and Multilateral Relations Division at IFAD, the International Fund for Agriculture Development. Mr. Kazuhiko Takeuchi, who is President of the Institute for Global Environmental Studies in Japan. And our chair is Mr. P K Basu, who is the former Secretary at the Ministry of Agriculture here in India. Mr. Basu, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. As you see, we have a very distinguished panel. Dr. Alok Adholeya, he has 31 years of experience and expertise in soil fertility, soil and plant microbiology, and host of other agriculture science related activities. He leads the team on mycorrhizal research, nanobiotechnology, and other related fields. He has chaired numerous advisory committees on agriculture and bioremediation, published over 170 research articles, guided 22 doctoral students and many master students, and has an honorary professor of Deakin University, Australia. He is a personal friend, and I have visited his lab, and I personally know how much of work he is doing. The next panelist is Dr. Hemant Kumar Badola. He is advisor, biodiversity, climate change, green think tank facilitator to Honorable Chief Minister's Office, Government of Sikkim, India. He was a scientist G of and head of the GB Pant National Institute of Himalayan Environment and Sustainable Development, Sikkim. He has over 38 years of experience in this field, and of course several projects, both national and international, that he has taken part in. He was part of the member team constituted by the Honorable Minister of Environment, Government of India, to access Loktak Lake ecological status in Manipur. He led international working groups for Sikkim Biodiversity Action Plan, and so on and so on. It will take me hours to read his biodata. And one little bit we can tell about Sikkim. It is one state in India which is totally chemical fertilizer free. They are totally on organic farming. Next, we have Dr. Edward Millard. He is the Director, Landscape and Communities, based on Rainforest Alliance's London office. His primary responsibility is to develop new multi-sector landscape scale initiatives based on commodity supply chains in priority countries in Africa and Asia. Again, he has years and years and years of experience in this field. He is a graduate in business administration and finance. He has published 3 books and several journal articles on small-scale business development. He is a board member of Good Weave International, an international organization to eradicate child labor in the rug and textile industries, and an independent assessor for a UK charity. He lives in Oxford and is married to an education professional from Peru. We have Dr. Ashwani K. Muthoo, and he as well has extensive experience in international cooperation, agriculture and rural development. He is at present the Director of the Global Engagement and Multilateral Relations Division in IFAD. Prior to this, he was Deputy Director of the Independent Office of IFAD. He has experience of working in more than 50 countries. And the best part is that you can ask him questions in English, Hindi, Italian, Portuguese, French, and Spanish. He knows all these languages. And lastly, let me introduce Dr. Kazuhiko Takeuchi, graduate from the Department of Geography, the University of Tokyo. Then he did his Masters in Agriculture and PhD from the same university. He also served as a professor at the National Environmental Science Center and as professor at the Graduate School of Agriculture and Life Science at the University of Tokyo from 1997 to 2012. He also served as a vice rector and senior vice rector at the United Nations University from 2008 to 2016. He has been director and project professor of the Integrated Research System for Sustainable Science at the University of Tokyo since 2012. He took up the position as President, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in July 2017. He has served as the Vice President of the Science Council of Japan, Chair of the Central Environmental Council, Government of Japan, and Editor-in-Chief of the journal Sustainable Science, Springer Nature. Professor Takeuchi specializes in landscape ecology, landscape planning, and maintainability finance. I think, as I said in the beginning, you have a very, very powerful and knowledgeable panel over here. The subject is very interesting because sometimes I wonder that let us leave all the infrastructure, everything intact, and some alien comes from outside and destroys all our food. So you have everything, but no food. So food is extremely important. Unfortunately, sometimes we lose track because we get it very easily. And as the documents have been circulated perhaps to you, a bulk of this food is produced by smallholders. And in countries like India or other Asian countries, smallholder means a fellow who on the average will have about a hectare or less of land. I remember I went to the US to study their system, and they took me to a farm and to look at his farm. And he said, Mr. Basu, I am a small farmer. So I said, what is the acreage that you have? He says 2,000 hectares. so that is the difference in scale. And the secondly, most of the problem arises because while we have made lot of improvement in the scientific side of agriculture, and we are reasonably proud of it, I mean the whole world, I am not talking only of India, it doesn't get translated to that small holder because of various issues. And one of the reasons is, of course, education in an underdeveloped country or developing country. So it becomes very difficult to help them, even if you want to. In fact, I don't know, I may take a quick poll. How many sitting here have actually done farming? You may raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, you never did any farming. You are a theoretical geneticist. 4. Oh my God. So what happens is,
great, great.
This is.
See, she is also there.
Where? Oh, okay. You actually did farming. I am very glad to know that. But still, in this huge crowd, and this problem happens in developing countries mostly. If you go to developed countries, you will not, the same response would have been much more. So what happens is, very learned people, well-meaning people, sit down and chart out agriculture policy, but the person for whom the policy is being framed, he hardly gets to participate or give any suggestions. Though there are little efforts, but this is another big drawback in the system that we have. Anyway, I don't think that I should, because a bureaucrat can go on for 1 hour. So, so I better leave it to the experts. Let's go from that side. We can invite, or you want this way? Huh? Okay, then let's invite Dr. Adholeya to give his talk. We have been told we have 5 minutes each, and then we'll have Q&A.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks to Chair. I always face this situation being starting my name by A and also my surname by A, being the first to face, but I always enjoyed that. So thank you. Speaking about the family farming, as you know, that in 2014, the International Year of Family Farming raised global awareness of the importance of family farmers to the world's shared future. Building on the success of the year, the adoption of the United Nations Decade of Family Farming, endorsed by 100 member states, represents global recognition of family farming being at the center of efforts needed to deliver on the 2030 agenda. If you look at the global scenario, the vast majority of farmers are well, an estimated of 84%, are 2 hectares and under. And virtually all small farmers are owned and operated at the family level. So generally speaking, the term family farming can be held to be largely synonymous with that of smallholder farmings. For many crops, farming over a large area requires hired labor, and hired labor requires supervision. For a family that run a farm, supervision costs a lot. And this diminishes the value of the farming, family farming. The size of family farm, their production pattern and factor use depends on the resources availability, agroclimatic conditions, as well as price of input and outputs. Cultivation in mountain areas is particularly a little bit different because there are more diverse climatic conditions, and they are dependent on minimal resources. Family farming, besides being a source of genetic agrodiversity, can ensure their preservation through the use of seed varieties and native livestock breeds, well adapted to local environments. If we look at the size distribution in different continents, Asia constitutes 2.4 hectares of a farm size, Africa 1.1 hectares, and Latin America 3 hectares. So when we look at this kind of sizes in different continents, we also know that the woman contributes a significant proportion of agricultural labor in the developing countries, and FAO estimates 43%, while UNIFEM estimates between 60 to 80% participation of women. In India, the small and marginal holding taken together, keeping 2 hectares or less than 2 hectares, constituted to 86%, and which is in 2015-16 against 84% in 2010 and 11. So this is something which is increasing. The land holding size is reducing, while their share in the operated area is also increasing. The average size of operational holding decreases from 2.28 hectare from 1970 to 1.04 hectares in 2015-16. So the average size of operational holding is also decreasing. Nearly 86% of total land holding of India belongs to small and marginal farmers. The percentage share of female operational holders has increased from 12% in 2011 to 13% in 2015-16. This is where the issue of migration, which is erupting, and we will talk about that as well. Female landholders more where matriarchal systems prevalent, such as Kerala, northeastern state, Meghalaya, Manipur, and Nagaland. Number of operational land holdings held by women farmers in India were just 20 million, with total area being 18 million hectare in 2015-16. So though the women farmers are increasing, but their number is not that big. If we talk about problems and issues related to breakdown of the family farming system, which is very important to understand before we really deliberate and discuss about what we can do to rebuild these family farms. One of the major factor which impacts negatively is the farm profitability. The another is the migration, which is what we are seeing regularly and consistently growing. The repeated division of land holding, size are reducing, and that is also leading to less profitability as well as the other factors that brings down the family farming system into our country or even in the world. The poor income, which is one of the major reason for this kind of migration, bleak future, and particularly stresses due to agroclimatic condition, climate change impacts, and so on and so forth. Migration is something which we have been seeing as a major factor. 21% in 1983, 26% in 2007 and 8, and this is changing very rapidly. The major reason for migration is that particularly in the younger generation, they are moving because they have better adaptability, more power to take challenges, and and get into the newer environment and develop new skills, because the profitability in their current profession is not that high. Particularly in the areas which are under high stress, the migration is even more. Migration is common in hilly districts, and this is something which many governments in the hilly regions are talking about. If I give you a number, 381 farmers out of 1,000 migrated in Uttarakhand area already in the last couple of years. So this is the number we are talking about. Now, the factors, those are leading to migration and trends. Basically, distance from urban centers doesn't make any difference. They want to go out, they want to get into new ventures, and they want to come back into the lull areas of their activities and active period of agriculture to their villages, wants to do something. If they can still do, and if the economics still doesn't hold, the migration become permanent. Land holding sizes are also, as I said, a big factor, and that is creating major problem. 7 states, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh, accounted for nearly 95% of the job lost in agriculture. And that's an alarming situation with us. Before I close, I would like to propose some of the possibilities to rebuild family farming as a sustainable model. Strengthening of agri skills among farmers' families. This is something which is missing, and the farming communities, particularly youth, are not getting opportunities because they do not have skill generation opportunities in the farming areas itself. Value chains, which are end-to-end value chains, are very important, and if they are institutionalized, then the reverse trend of family farming, rebuilding family farming can happen. The other aspect is the micro-entrepreneurship, nurturing skills required to build them into agribusiness and services, which is also sometime based on the capital investments. And if those are provided, then things can change significantly. The aspect that we have been doing at TERI, for example, since 15 years, a colleague of mine in the audience, Dr. Nidhi Chana, have been working in the Uttarakhand area. And we have worked very closely with the communities. For example, around, we have increased their income from 50,000 rupees to 1,20,000 rupees. And these are 7,000 farmers in 25 villages. Besides the income generation, besides the income increase, we have also helped them restoring or conserving 3.6 million liters of rainwater in that area, because that also helped reducing soil erosion as well as productivity enhancement on those marginal lands. We have also been working on resource use efficiency side, so that the minimal inputs with higher efficiency. For example, we are working on biological components to reduce maximum fertilizer savings, I would say. And we have rolled down the product known as mycorrhiza, gone out worldwide, which has a capacity to reduce 50% fertilizers. Besides this, we are now coming up with the next generation fertilizer, where the current fertilizer families have 30 to 35% efficiency, whereas the next generation fertilizer, those are coming from the nano area, will have 85 to 95% efficiency. So if the resource efficiency is increased, skills are built up in the villages and communities level, I think we can still get this turnaround and rebuild our family farming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Adholeya. Dr. Millard, would you like?
Thank you. Well, one advantage of going first is you don't time out, so that's one thing. But I'll be brief, and some of you may have noticed that Rainforest Alliance has a stand in the grounds here. So please, if anything that I say sparks an interest, you can stop by and learn more. Sitting here this morning and afternoon, I've heard 4 concepts come through loud and clear, and I'll just pick up those very briefly to relate to what we're doing. One is the concept of incentives. You know, people act and behave in their interests, all of us. The second one is regulation, which I won't talk about, which has its role in protecting the ecosystems, of course. The third is social inclusion. It came through very strongly in the address which you gave, Madam President, and now you're referring to the skills development. So I think we know the range of solutions that are there, and if they can come to work together, we're definitely going to make progress. The trick is how, you know, and one way that we need to make a lot of progress, and where Rainforest Alliance puts a lot of its emphasis, is on the private sector role. So we began really, when we started up in life 25 years ago in sustainable agriculture, our basic premise, as it remains today, was, you know, make sustainability good business sense. And that applies whether you're a multinational company or a small-scale farmer with 1 hectare. It's got to add up economically. One mechanism we found to be very successful over the years, which we've built up, as was referred to in the introduction, has been our certification system. Certification system, it works like this. You have a standard which has to be defined in a very participatory way with strong farmer voice, which sets out a set of best practices for environmental management, social responsibility, and economic profitability. You then, if farms apply those practices, they can obtain a certificate that can then be sold into the market, the produce from that certified farm, and give the market some advantage. Now, this has been successful to the extent that, you know, 3.5 million hectares are certified globally, about 400,000 in India, which is quite significant. And actually the number of farms is 1.35 million. My point there is that this is absolutely a smallholder scheme. This is less than 3 hectares per farm. So this is not just about your 2,000 hectare small farm in the US. But other ways, the reason that this is growing so strongly is the private sector not just gets a market advantage from having a certification seal, which we give them, but companies are very switched on these days about responsible sourcing. Large companies have made pledges in the New York Declaration of Forests, the Consumer Goods Forum, the Prince Charles Declaration for the cocoa sector. Companies are very committed because they see risk in their supply chain. And when a company sees risk, they invest. And it's leveraging this investment and getting to speak a language that business understands that starts to change the paradigm. And then if we can leverage investment, we can start to make more economic sense for the farm. Not just investment from companies, investment from the financial sector. There's loads of money looking for investment, but the small-scale farmers too high risk. So we've got to bring the risk barrier down by making sustainable farming investable and good business sense, which means showing a positive return on the investment. It's very straightforward. That means increased productivity. It means the rest of the climate smart agenda. It means social inclusion so that, you know, all members of the family farm have their stake. It means economic diversification to make the farm more resilient. Food security. This is the climate smart agriculture agenda. So I think that we will continue, not just with the certification scheme, but making these kinds of investments with partners into this climate smart agenda. And if we can then, little by little, bring up the skills, make this interesting to financial investors and companies, then we do start to move the needle. And that's our agenda, and that's why we're here. And thank you, TERI, for inviting us.
Thank you, Dr. Millard. Those are very good suggestions. May I request Takeuchi for you to use the time?
Good afternoon, everybody. The title of my presentation is Partnerships-Based Solutions are Key for Sustainable Family Farming in Asia. So this is my conclusion. I would like to emphasize the importance of small-scale family farming in Asia. 99% of the farmers are belonging to the family farmers, and they are producing many agricultural products, which are quite important for the livelihood, not only in the rural areas, but also in the urban areas. And if you look at the family fisheries, it is also quite significant, particularly in Asia. And these challenges related with the family farming is closely related with the achievement of sustainable development goals. However, we are having so many challenges, as two previous speakers already explained. Shortage of the income level, and change in lifestyle, and difficult in marketing, and also the global challenges. Many people already recognize the climate challenges, but I also would like to emphasize the importance of overutilizing of fertilizers. If you look at the global planetary boundaries, use of nitrogen and phosphorus are far beyond the limits of planetary boundaries, which is more serious than climate change. As my good friend Johan Rockström explained in his paper in Science. So, this is a point that we will have some opportunity to overcome. So as Sikkim states, I also echo to congratulate your great achievement. 100% organic agriculture is a key for the success. My institute conducted the research in India and compared between the organic farming with the conventional farming. And we recognize that organic family farms are less vulnerable and to stresses and more resilient. So this is a point that I would like to share with all of you. And so we have a lot of opportunities to enhance the capacity of family farming by appreciating and encouraging the farmers to promote the organic farming. And one of the very important initiatives is farmer producer organizations, FPOs, which is a revolutionary method in India and in other parts of Asia. And if you look at the figure, you could see a rapid increase of the portion which are belonging to these initiatives. And this will bring us a new opportunity to combine the family farming, organic family farming, with the high value adding of market mechanisms and so forth. And in the year 2010, I proposed to initiate the Satoyama Initiative, which is a traditional rural landscape of Japan, and we wanted to share with all other family farming and family forestry and family fisheries to join to make a global alliance. And this initiative was approved during the COP10 of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And still we are continuing. And we are taking the landscape approach. It's a holistic approach, not just to consider individual commodities or individual method of farming, but also try to integrate all of them. And another initiative by FAO is a globally important agricultural heritage systems, or we call, in short, the GIAS. I'm a member of a scientific advisory group of the GIAS for designating the globally important agriculture systems. And I'm periodically, therefore, visiting the Rome to designate agriculture heritage systems all over the world. And during the GIAS forum, I had a chance to discuss with Dr. Swaminathan, the father of agriculture in India. And he said, when I proposed the Green Revolution, it was not enough. We need to promote evergreen revolution. And he is a strong supporter now of GIAS. And I'm very, very pleased that he clearly indicated his concern to appreciate the family farming associated with the traditional systems related with agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. So these two initiatives, Satoyama Initiative and GIAS, I'm trying to combine, integrate, to make more power to change the family farming to be a more revolutionary way of agricultural systems under the Sustainable Development Goals. So I would like to conclude that partnership is very important. Not just the farmers, but also we could ask the private sectors or civil servants or even the citizens need to collaborate with the farmers to strengthen the family farming to ensure our global sustainability. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Takeuchi. Now,
Yeah.
we would like to hear Badola.
Thank you, Chair, panel members, and ladies and gentlemen. Here, my narratives would be, I would like to speak about a story of how the green and organic biome with a strong political willingness can yield the results. The case of the Sikkim. Like any other part of the world, Himalaya, most of the Himalayan organic fields are small and rain-fed. They are the challenges of the physiography, erratic weathers, conditions, landslides, slopes, verticality, and lots of things are there. These are challenges, inaccessibility of the terrains and the villages, etc. And these make the farmers highly vulnerable to the climate change and the resources crunch. I wish to introduce very briefly the Sikkim. What exactly? The Sikkim is a small state in the northeastern Himalaya of India and having a over 8 kilometers of the vertical spread. That means altitudinal amplitude is very high. So that makes that offers all kind of the bio zones there. And because of that, it is one of the part of one of the biodiversity hot spots of the world. There are 32 ethnic communities, 17 languages, and 9 religions. These manifest the cultural diversity of the state. And the challenges are same as of the other Himalayan states. Sikkim green and organic biome is one of the result of the numerous environmental and socio-political interventions by the India's longest serving leader of the state, Honorable Chief Minister Dr. Pawan Chamling, which helped enriching natural and the agro ecosystems, which offered stability of environment, developmental stability, socio-politics, and above all, the peace of the region. We have more than 47% of the area under forest cover, and 34% under protected area network. That is a huge area. I would like to mention here that in 2016, the TERI conferred the Sustainable Development Leadership Awards to the Honorable Chief Minister for his green and organic policies. So this is a backdrop of sustainability and societal resilience through organic agro-ecosystem management is a lead coming back to the roots. A socio-political proposition to the healthy life and healthy environment has been realized in Sikkim. I would like to share that life expectancy of the people in Sikkim has enhanced 10 years from 63 to 73 years over the past 25 years owing to these all interventions. As far as the history of the organic farming concerned is family farming, because these are all small land holdings and largely focus on the individual farming based agriculture. In 2003, Government of Sikkim, the Legislative Assembly passed the organic policy. In 2005, Sikkim decided to stop the quota from the Government of India for any chemical fertilizers. And in 2009, we had 100 villages converted to the bio-villages. That was, and in 2010, we launched the organic mission. By 2014, Sikkim Agriculture, Horticulture, Inputs and Livelihood Feed Regulation Act that was enacted, and by 2016-17, over 65,000 registered farmers on the organic farming we had, and covering the 77,000 hectares of the certified organic land in hand. There are various mechanisms we followed to achieve that goal. So the time is not permitting me to peep around that. What we did, in the recent years, we prioritized the crops. Apart from the other traditional crops, but for example, the large cardamom, which contributes over 80% of the India's total production from Sikkim. And with that, ginger, Sikkim, mandarin, and the millet, etc., we prioritize for the high economic return to the people. And now we have the organic brand, and it empowered poor and the women significantly. And the premium rate of the organic produces have been accepted by the people. Whosoever living or the visiting Sikkim, they accept that high prices. That means good money to the farmers, small farmers. And significantly, it has enhanced the livelihood of the people, and we don't have the beggars. No hunger is in Sikkim. In 2016, the Prime Minister of India, he declared Sikkim as the first organic state of the country. And in October 2018, I'm leaving many of the other applauds, etc. The United Nations FAO, jointly with the World Future Council and the IFOM Organic International, declared Sikkim as the first organic state of the world by conferring Future Policy Gold Award to the Honorable Chief Minister for his all effective policies. Over the years, the tourism has increased, and particularly after adopting this organic culture and the greenery is there. Between 2014 to 2017, 50% tourism enhanced. That is reaching to 1.425 million visitors in 2017. And 18 is also coming up with very good results. One thing I want to tell that I'm not going to go for the, many concepts, etc. Already my predecessors, they have talked about that. The scientific manifestation of the impact of those organic agriculture, family agriculture is witnessed. There are the intricate linkages between the organic farming and greenery, and of course, with understanding the climate change impacts. Pollinators have enhanced over the years. We have good data. One of my recent publication appeared in December 2018 on the +1 and +1. It indicated, we assessed that timberline is unlikely to shift upwards in future. That is one very good indication. And similarly, one of the publication appeared, which tells that glacier melting is slowest comparison to the Western Himalaya in the eastern part. And a recent vulnerability assessment indicated that Sikkim is the lowest risk amongst the Himalayan states. These can be linked to the organic and green policies, enriching Sikkim biome. And there are the other indications, directly or indirectly. For example, in 2018, the UNESCO finally declared the Kanchenjunga Biosphere Reserve as a part of the World Network of the Biosphere Reserve, because the large area of the transition zone and the buffer zone is fully organic, and that gives a lot of advantage for the conservation of the core zone. So these are some of the indirect shields. So even the organic farming can help enriching biodiversity, and also it shields, it covers the conservation interests. There are many government initiatives, and one, of course, that is the central government and the state government has, because of that, airport now is functional in Sikkim. That means it is transporting perishables and flowers. One recently, government of Sikkim has endorsed pension scheme for the organic farmers. So this is perhaps one of the, I think, unique initiative by the government. That means it is a great motivation to the people. Yeah, 1 minute, not very. Transport has been provided, is being provided to the organic producers in the remotest areas. That means they are getting help from that. Floriculture is one of the biggest strength to the family farming, and people are earning on average 30,000 to 1 lakh rupees per month. So this is a very good incentive to the people for their hard work. Yes, I'm finishing. Yes. Yes, okay. On the United Nations questions, most of the questions have been answered by the Sikkim. And on the this partnership, I would like to say that Sikkim look forward to greater partnerships, and we believe in the partnership and collaboration. And I believe that WSDS platform can be used for such promotion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Badola. Last speaker of the day, Dr. Muthoo.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. You know, I always like being the last speaker because in a panel, because whatever I wanted to say has already been covered by my distinguished colleagues, so I can keep my intervention short, especially taking into account the time, and we would like to have a dialogue with you. First of all, I would like to thank TERI for organizing this outstanding summit, and we are delighted to be co-partner associates, we meaning the International Fund for Agricultural Development. TERI has mobilized so many distinguished speakers and panelists, and we're delighted to be part of this. Just a word on IFAD, or IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development. We are a United Nations specialized agency and an international financial institution. We work in more than 100 countries globally, and basically we provide concessional loans and grants for smallholder agriculture and rural development. You heard from my colleagues about the importance of family farming, so I don't want to really repeat that, But I do want to highlight two things only, and that is, as you heard from my colleagues, that more than 70% of the food that we consume in the world is produced by family farmers. So they become very, very important to ensuring global food security, national food security, and for meeting the SDGs. But at the same time, the family farmers are, by and large, the poorest segments of our communities in rural areas. So it is our moral obligation also to ensure their better livelihoods, incomes, and overall well-being. So that is why the decade of family farming becomes very important. So let me come to the decade for a second and brief you on what IFAD and FAO are doing together, because as you know, the UN General Assembly that was adopted in December 2017 requested both FAO and IFAD, both based in Rome, to implement the decade for family farming from 2019 to 2028. So we are working very actively with other partners, with member states, including India, and farmers' organizations and women's representatives to develop an action plan for the decade, which will include different types of actions, complementary actions at the global level, at the regional level, at the country level, policy actions, actions to implement programs and projects at the country level, policies to transform policies, favorable policies for family farming at the country level. So we're developing this action plan, which will be adopted ultimately in an international conference that both IFAD and FAO are jointly organizing in Rome at the end of May in 2019. So that will really represent the launch of the decade, when we will collectively undertake all these actions in support of family farming. I would like to conclude by making two observations. And these points have also been made by my colleagues previously. The first one is the fundamental importance of partnerships. And I don't want to repeat what was said earlier. And I would like to only single out partnerships with the private sector. Because as a global organization, what we're seeing is that we do have partnerships as a development community. We do have partnerships with the private sector. But partnerships with the private sector, especially in remote rural areas where family farmers live, is rather infrequent. So we really need to make further efforts to see how we can mobilize the partnership with the private sector, not only so that they can provide greater investments in rural development and in family farming, but also that we can leverage on their expertise, on their innovation and their technologies. And my final point to conclude is that when we speak about family farming and promoting family farming for meeting the SDGs, I think we have to contextualize it within the broader framework of ensuring sustainable and inclusive rural transformation, rural development, so that we're not only talking about on-farm activities, but we're talking about the entirety of development and economic transformation in the rural space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Muthoo.
Because we're lucky enough to have some ministerial speakers coming later, if we could just have 5 minutes worth of questions, so maybe
Okay.
2 quick questions, would be grand.
Fair enough. Any questions? Yes?
I am R.K. Khanna, formerly with the Central Water Commission, Government of India, looking after environmental issues and also command area development related to agriculture. One important issue which has not been touched here is the role of women in agriculture, gender issues. I think that's very important, especially in India and this part of the world. I would say the SAARC countries, women do the maximum work with the agriculture, right from the morning. And throughout the day, they work on the farms with the husbands, and many of because of male migration, they are heading the households and doing all the work. But when it comes to decision making, the husband is the member of the Farmers Association or the Water User Association, because the land and property are in his name. So when it comes to decision making, they are pushed to the background. I've got some papers on this also, and I think that is unfortunate, and any panelist can respond to it.
Dr. Adholeya?
On the migration is
Well, I did mention about,
fair.
sorry here.
It's better
He talked about the migration.
Women.
would you like to take this? or-
I can briefly comment on that.
Yeah, please.
I think everyone in this room and beyond will agree with what you said about the role of women in family farming, but generally in sustainable and inclusive rural development, agriculture and rural development. Let me just mention and link that to the decade of family farming. What I didn't mention to you earlier on is that we have constituted an international steering committee to support IFAD and FAO to accompany the implementation of the decade. And in that context, we also have farmers' organizations, in particular women's organizations represented in that international steering committee, so that we can hear their voices also as we move forward in formulating the action plan and delivering on that. And I would like to share with you, as a concrete example, before coming this afternoon to the auditorium here, I had a meeting with representatives of SEVA. I think many of you know SEVA, Self-Employed Women's Association, precisely to see how we can engage them in the process of the decade of family farming.
Thank you. Any question? Yeah, please.
Yes, I'm Vishwajit with the Asia Consulting Group. My question is for the whole panel. It's about the biggest trend of this century, which is urbanization, and the entire movement of youth and of male workers to the cities, and basically the fracturing of the family farm unit, so to speak. And I wonder if the panelists can comment on government policies that try to push the economic center of gravity back towards the villages and push the opportunities back to the villages so that the urbanization, which is again at breakpoint for cities, can be avoided.
I think the skill development initiative of Government of India can take a central role in terms of developing skills which are relevant for agriculture and agribusiness. That would create lots of opportunities to youths for not only having income generation or higher income, but also maintain higher social status. And that's what is actually, we have seen that the migration is happening particularly in the youths for education, and then they remain in the cities because they don't see big opportunities back into their villages.
Yes, just
One more, or you would like?
no, just to share a little bit of experience that we have. I mean, I think it's a question of the onus is on the farm to be attractive for a career for the young people, and that means, you know, modernization. It means using some of the technologies available to us, like digital technologies, business planning, making farming more business-like will start to appear more attractive. It's clearly necessary, and so these are some of the tools we can use to encourage it.
There was one more, two more. Can we take two more? One more.
Just 2 minutes of one question and brisk answers, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any, yes.
You mentioned about collaboration or cooperation between small farmers and corporates. The problem here, it seems to me, is that the farmers are small and numerous, the corporates are large and few in number. And this makes for a perfect storm of an unequal relationship. Specifically, the corporates are monopoly suppliers of inputs, they're monopoly buyers of the output, and this can lead to very perverse outcomes for the farmer. And this is not theoretical, because we've seen this in all the banana republics, like companies like Del Monte and so on. So what is your prescription for avoiding these kinds of perverse outcomes in the kind of collaboration that you advocated?
Okay, to keep it very short, I would just like to clarify, I never used the word corporates, I said private sector. So it could also be small and medium enterprises in rural areas, and that's the angle we come in from IFAD. We do realize and recognize what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. And in that context, I would like to also highlight that IFAD is just now launching a new instrument, a complementary instrument to its traditional instruments of providing loans and grants to governments, whereby we will be able to directly invest in private sector, in small and medium enterprise development in rural areas. So that is the focus that we are taking. We will be able to provide equity funding to startup businesses, of farmers' organizations, women's organizations, young entrepreneurs who want to contribute to rural development, for example, in terms of developing agro-processing, in terms of marketing chains, and so on. So it is true what you're saying. It's very difficult and challenging and risky also to partner with the large private sector. But we should not rule that out either, because if we can make investing in rural areas attractive, and if we can also build the capacity of our farmers, as my colleagues were saying earlier, in terms of skills and knowledge to engage with larger investors, that is something that we should also explore and not rule out.
Thank you. Last question.
This is rather more of a comment to Mr. Muthoo, who is going to implement it as a part with the FAO. You know, we should really speaking build on, when we talk of the farming family systems, on the local knowledge and local biological resources available right there. Particularly, as was mentioned by our panel from Japan, the panelists from Japan, that there's a lot of local biodiversity which is already in place, and which is very important, particularly when we talk with regard to climate change or climate resilience and nutritional quality improvement. You know, particularly based on the information and the knowledge which they have. And that's what the farming system says, family farming decade says, building on the local knowledge and act at the global level. So particularly when we talk not only of India, which is the richest agrobiodiversity center we have in the world, even Asia for that matter, you know, these local farmers, we have done some analysis and research on mainstreaming agrobiodiversity, particularly to take care of climate resilience and nutrient security, will be much more important. You know, not only the crop breeds, the one which are being bred by the corporates or by the private sector, most high-yielding, you know, kind of hybrids and varieties. Rather, we come back to some of these land races, you know, farmers' varieties, obsolete varieties, which is kind of input for the organic farming more available. With less resources, you put more. But the only question would be, how can you help them in marketing those nutritional products better at a kind of a premium price to increase their profitability. So I think if these things, you know, we have plenty of this information available, and in fact, particularly Himalayan or other states in India to take care of this particular part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It. Okay. I would like to thank all the distinguished panelists as well as this very learned audience. Thank you very much for a nice and lovely session.
Thanks very much indeed.
And sorry to have to bring it to a close. It was a really interesting session. We have the results of the last poll, the final polling boxes from the remote constituencies up in the auditorium in the balcony have come through. So there we have it. The vast majority of you believe that government, national policies are essential in terms of curbing plastic in marine waters.